There are a few questions I would like to ask on behalf of the students of aspiring fund managers basically. So what is the kind of knowledge and the level of expertise needed in order to become a fund manager?
So you need financial literacy for sure. You need to understand how to read financial statements. You need to understand how to analyze financial statements, and you need to have some background in financial education. I think what you need to do is you need to understand financial statements, need to understand company structures, industry structures, and try and just question things that you see around you, right? So why is the Ola guy so pissed off these days? Why is the Ola Uber guy not giving you service these days? Why was he giving you fantastic service 2 years back?
Because the commissions charged by Uber and all have increased.
Exactly. So Ola Uber were earlier burning cash.
Right.
And they were letting you get rides at affordable rates, and they were paying very well to the drivers.
Right.
Now they are charging you reasonable rates, which are much higher than the original discounted rates, and they're taking their own cut. So what is left for the driver is very little.
Right.
Now the driver is therefore in financial distress.
Correct.
And that is why that driver cannot give you good service, because he is under financial distress.
In fact, Sridhar Vengu just tweeted about it, if I'm not wrong, about Swiggy and these kind of platforms, the kind of money that they're charging just being an intermediary should be low. So it's supposed to be, these platforms are supposed to be enabling and creating value for the customer and the business provider at large, and supposed to be creating value rather than working the Amazon way, if I could say so, and kind of working as a mafia.
Again, I'm not going to say that Ola or Uber is bad or the company is doing any injustice. What
Right.
I want to say is that today, the service levels are significantly different than what they used to be 2 years back.
Correct.
And if you go into analyzing that deeper and deeper and deeper, you get the industry structure there. That these cab aggregators are using the customers, they're using the drivers, and they're getting a commission, and then that commission has changed, the fares have changed, and therefore what is left for the driver is changed. And that gives you some thought process as to how this industry has evolved. So if you want to become an analyst, if you want to become a fund manager in the long run, it's all about observing, analyzing, understanding. Financial statements, yes, but also industry structures, incentives. If you try and understand those things more and more and more, the world starts looking like different to you. You start empathizing with the cab aggregator drivers, then complaining about them. Because you know what they're going through, right? And you understand it.
Empathy is important.
Empathy is important. You can complain all you want that they're not there on time or they're calling you ahead of reaching, but you have to understand where they're coming from, right? So, and these are things that will help you become understand everything better. No, it's just not just about the people or the sectors around you. It's about everything around you, and that's how you slowly graduate into a role. Yes, you have to apply to many different companies. You have to go through a lot of interviews. This is a sector which is super specialized.
Correct.
So you obviously need an educational background, and you need to apply to
for the technicals and the understanding and the depth, basically.
Because nobody is going to teach you that on the job.
Right.
What people will teach you is beyond that.
Correct. Right? You build on that.
You build
to apply that.
Exactly. So what gets tested is that. In the interview, what gets tested is that. So you need to apply to a lot of companies. You need to go through a lot of interviews. You will have some rejections, and that's absolutely fine. That's how you basically need to go for it. You need to have some education. You need to have some observing skills, analyze what you observe, and then apply for jobs, and just hope and pray that you get something.
Right. So along with the formal education that is required, along with that, what are the skills that an individual needs to acquire in order to become an equity research analyst and then graduate up to becoming a fund manager?
Yeah, so the skill set again is to look at things from a different perspective, right? So if you open some of these social media platforms, you'll immediately find people complaining about cab aggregators, right? No service and this and that, and the cab doesn't come, or it came late, or there is no space,
I share the pain,
or there is no space to put the luggage, or whatever, I'm just saying.
Right.
And the moment you take an analyst hat, then you start analyzing about why is this
correct.
Why is the cab not coming? Why is he asking you where you want to go? And are these questions valid? Should you be responding? And so it's a different hat you have to wear when you look at some things, right? So that's a very important skill.
So how do you build that perspective?
No, you don't build that perspective. You start with just asking questions.
So more presence of mind, more awareness to things around.
A 360-degree POV.
More reading.
Yes, reading.
More depth.
And a 360-degree POV. I'm again saying, because if you just look at the pace, in the same example, that cab aggregation, if you look at from the passenger point of view, which is what we all have as we hail cabs, you'll always find troubles with what the service is being offered, what the price is being charged.
But you need the driver's point of view.
Exactly.
And you need the company's point of view.
The moment you take it, you probably understand why the company is doing what it's doing. You understand why the driver is doing what you're doing. You understand why the consumer is doing what it's doing. And then you probably are able to understand a complete view of what is happening. And this is just an example that we're taking. Obviously, you can take that for the education sector, for the hospitality sector. You can take it for any sector or any subsector that you choose to. And the moment you start doing that, you start understanding things better and better and better. And you keep asking questions till you get to the point where you understand everything. You just keep asking why, how, what. So that skill set is extremely important. To be curious, to learn at all stages of life. Keep learning. There's so much to know, you possibly cannot know everything, right?
Right.
So just never stop learning.
It gets overwhelming at times to see the amount of information that we have access to.
Oh, it's absolutely overwhelming. It's absolutely, and YouTube or whatever, these online platforms that can give you access to such fantastic information. But there is just so much of it that you can't go after everything.
So you have to be organized, you have to be planned that this is what I need, this is the time frame I have, this is the amount of analysis I can do.
Absolutely.
So you need to have that structure in mind, because what I'm seeing is that without these deadlines, without that structure, without that planned approach, and without being organized, it's just not working in today's world.
It doesn't work. So you have to be very, very organized.
So when we're looking at the skills, so with respect to skills, with respect to technicals, etc., what do you need?
So some of the skills that you may need here is you will need Microsoft Excel, because of financial services, financial analysis, you need Excel skills.
You need your spreadsheets,
you need presentation skills, because you need to communicate so much to different stakeholders. You need depth in analysis, so you need to read a lot. You need to read a lot of books. But again, books, articles, no matter what you read, be selective. More depth, less width, I would suggest.
Okay.
Because what often people make a mistake is they'll do 10 industries, but they will know 10 industries superficially. Now, to my mind, that doesn't help you. Okay, you rather know only 2 industries, but know them well in depth, right? So I don't mind width as long as you have depth. But if you don't have depth, the width doesn't help you.
Because that's what I keep on saying, because if I'm applying a valuation principle, for example, to a SaaS or a PaaS-based platform, the fundamentals or the application changes, but only if you have that kind of depth in terms of understanding valuations, understanding research.
Absolutely.
In that case, you're able to actually apply and to the ever-changing environment that we're in.
Absolutely. 100%.
So the depth, and people tend to get bored too quickly.
Correct.
And that depth again is lacking, which is the most important aspect today when I see that.
No, so I have an interesting input for students there. I think people say variety is the spice of life, and I agree with it. Variety is the spice of life. So if you're understanding an industry and you are getting bored, change the point of view within the industry.
Interesting.
Try thinking from the vendor's point of view. Try thinking from the customer's point of view. Try thinking from the logistic partner point of view, but within the same subsector or same industry. So that will give you a new perspective, a new way to look at it, but you're still studying the same industry in depth.
So how to make it in the industry? Equity research, fund management, how to make it big in the industry?
See, obviously, there is no substitute for hard work, passion, and luck.
Correct.
You have to be sometimes lucky to get there.
I posted something on how to become lucky.
How to become lucky. I haven't read it.
There are 4 kinds of luck.
Achha, I haven't read it. But I will read it after this. So yes, there is no substitute for hard work, luck, and diligence and passion. But yeah, if you want to become big in this industry, you have to start with understanding, reading, analyzing, and you have to apply to a lot of companies which offer you jobs like this.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many companies today. In fact, this ecosystem is still evolving. As I said, financial services assets are today still less than 10% of the industry's wealth, of the country's wealth. So we have a lot of scope to grow. And that will grow because a lot more companies will come out to support that growth. There will be a lot more financial inclusion in our country. And therefore, there will be opportunities for analysts and fund managers to be born in every part of the country. So you just need to apply, and hopefully you'll make it someday.
Wonderful. So a day as a fund manager, how does it look like?
So a lot of information flow. Right from the moment you open your eyes, hundreds of WhatsApps, emails, a lot of information flow. You first obviously pick and choose what you want to read, what you want to analyze, what you want to sort of pay attention to. Then you go to your office, do your morning calls with your analysts. You discuss with your analysts what they have observed over the past, what they want to say about stocks and industry and trends. Then you speak to your fellow fund managers, get input from them, try and understand what they are saying about different industries, different sectors. You do your own research, you speak to your industry peers, you speak to your partners, you speak to your stakeholders, talk to them. If at all needed, you take some actions on the portfolio.
Okay.
Again, I try to refrain from that simply because the more you act, the more it hurts. So, try and refrain, but go deeper and deeper into the actions that you've already taken. Judge yourself, right? Don't let others judge you, but you obviously judge yourself, your past actions. And you learn a lot, right? See, this is a market where you'll have to be humble and arrogant at the same time. Okay.
Interesting.
So this market often slaps you in the face as a fund manager. You'll have to take several slaps throughout your career. Now, some of these slaps the market is hitting you with is because you're not listening to the market today. But over the long term, the market will have to listen to you. So in these cases, you have to be arrogant. You have to tell the market that, look, I am right. You are just being myopic. And that is why you are wrong. In the long run, I am right. And you have to stand and take 2 or 3 more slaps. But end of the day, you will be right. And your punch will be harder. In some cases, the market will slap you because you just made a wrong error, you made a wrong judgment.
So you need the humility there.
You need the humility there. You need to say, okay, Mr. Market, I am sorry, I made a mistake. And you go back and judge yourself as to what led to that mistake. And then you rectify the process. You keep refining your investment process framework to ensure that the same error doesn't happen again.
Right? So one needs to work against their own biases.
Absolutely.
And have a very scientific approach towards the thinking to refute their own hypothesis they had formed initially.
Yes.
I would strongly recommend the book Think Again by Adam Grant on this in terms of revisiting your decision making and how people tend to act and take the wrong decisions at times because of biases. One final question for the students would be that those who are from a very non-finance kind of a background or a non-core background as such, and they want to transition into finance, into equity research, into funds, etc. So how do they go about it?
So again, you'll have to start with beginning an education base at least. Something to do with financial studies. You have to start. So let's say you're an IT engineer, right?
Right.
You have studied coding and you're practicing coding somewhere, in some institution. And today you suddenly decide you want to become a IT research analyst.
Okay.
So you understand the industry you're going to research.
So equity research analyst specializing in the IT sector.
IT sector.
All right.
So you understand the sector that you're going to research because you already worked in the sector.
Right.
Right. But you don't understand how to analyze financial statements. So that's the gap. Right. So you first have to start plugging that gap. You have to first realize what the gap is for you to get there. Fill in the gap. After you have filled in the gap, apply to companies and tell them, look, I understand this already. This was the gap that I had. I've plugged it in. Judge me on it. And if you feel that I have both places in things in place, hire me.
So you kind of create a niche for yourself.
You have to create.
I know somebody who, not directly, who mastered in kind of chemistry and history together and got into restoration of archaeological artifacts.
Right.
And that required the knowledge of both chemistry and history.
Correct.
And I was appalled by the kind of combination that somebody could go for because they're kind of very opposite in nature.
So my ex-boss at Nomura in London, he used to be a practicing surgeon.
Okay.
And that just became too hard, the kind of emotional stress surgeons have to go through.
Right.
And the time management becomes extremely difficult. So as he grew older, it became more and more challenging for him to stay a surgeon.
Right.
So he did some financial course, he got his financial training done, and he became a pharma research analyst.
Okay.
Now, as a pharma research analyst, you have to understand medicine and you have to understand biology. He already had that understanding. So he did his certification in finance and became a research analyst for pharmaceutical industry, and he did extremely well there. So, if you want to change
marks his niche.
He marked his niche. So you can change course. It's difficult. You can make it, but you have to go for it.
But then again, like personally, even I recommend students and working professionals to not let go of their experience, but to combine and create a very unique space for themselves.
Absolutely.
And capitalize on the erstwhile experience.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise it becomes a challenge in order to take the pay up.
Exactly. So what happens is if you don't leverage what you have already done, then you're again starting from scratch. Basically you're resetting the clock to zero. Right? So it's your call whether you want to reset the clock to zero or not.
Right.
It's beneficial if you don't reset it. Because your past then still remains relevant. The moment you let go of what you have done, your past becomes irrelevant.
A smarter way of pivoting, just the way we do with startups. So you pivot and in career also you're just trying to do the same.
Exactly.
Perfect. That I think answers quite a bit.